Hello, and welcome back to our 30 minutes of tech with me, Sarah Kimmel. I am Sarah Kimmel. I am the head of technical support for Griffin Online Safety. And my team of techs is very excited to help you guys out. We do have several ways to contact us. So if you do need support with your Griffin device, our hours are 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is 7 days a week. You can reach our chat at griffinconnect.com, where you can chat with a live tech during those hours. And you can also call our phone number, which is 480-428-4016. So you will be able, normally, our chat is a little quicker to respond than the voicemails or the phone calls, and that's just because of the number of texts we have and how we're able to support multiple chats at the same time, and then go from there. But so that is support for Griffin. But if you don't already have a Griffin, that is just fine. This is we're doing these monthly now, and we're doing different topics around family technology so that you can well obviously talk a little bit about Griffin during these chats, but we'll have a more broader topic about technology. So today's topic is actually about layering parental controls. So, unfortunately, some people will buy a Griffin. It has amazing parental controls, but they think that is it, that they are done and that is all they need to do. But unfortunately, technology doesn't quite work like that. So, I'm going to explain kind of a little bit about how that works and what different parental controls work together and what will conflict, because this is a question we get a lot on our tech support, like just on our tech support help desk. So I just wanted to kind of maybe clarify a little bit about what will work together and what won't. So the reason you need multiple layers of parental controls is different things have access to different things. So, as a Wi Fi router, the Griffin can't like filter Netflix. So, if you have a Netflix account and you have all the content in Netflix, Griffin has no ability to filter Netflix. You either have access to Netflix or you don't have access to Netflix. That's what Griffin can control. It can control that access, but it can't control what happens once you have the access. So that's why in app controls is going to be your first layer of parental controls. So when you have an application like, let's say, TikTok, you can either allow or deny TikTok through something like the Griffin, or if you have your TikTok account, you can set parental controls within TikTok, because the only person that can really filter that content is TikTok itself. So if you go into TikTok, you can set different parental controls for your child's TikTok account. Same with, Instagram, you can set up supervision. It doesn't really give you much control over the child's account, but a lot of apps actually have built-in parental controls. And so it's important for you to understand what those controls are and what they can do. Roblox is another good example. Roblox has some built-in parental controls, but you need to set those. With the Griffin, you can only allow or deny access to Roblox. And then again, if you have any questions at all while I'm chatting here, feel free to pop those in the chat, and I will address those questions too. So that's the first layer, is in-app parental controls. So no matter what app you are allowing your child to use, find out if it has some built-in parental controls for that app. The next layer that you would have is on device. So again, a lot of devices will have built-in parental controls. Again, as a Wi-Fi device, the Griffin, it can't block out things on a phone or a tablet or a laptop. It can only block access to the internet. So there's a lot of things that you could do on your phone or, gaming system or device that is not internet related. And so if you set a time limit on Griffin, it's not going to enforce that time limit on, say, like the Xbox, it's only going to deny access to the internet on the Xbox, but you'd still be able to get on the Xbox. You'd be able to play a game that is just disc based, that's not connected to the internet. There's a lot of things that you could still do on the device that have nothing to do with the internet. So the Griffin wouldn't be able to shut down access to the device itself because it's a Wi-Fi router. It doesn't have the capability to get into the operating system and shut things down like that, just the internet. It can only shut off access to the internet. So, setting on device parental controls is super important. And so that's going to be your next layer. The on device parental controls. So, if you have a Windows PC, it's called Windows Family Safety, or Microsoft Family Safety, sorry. Microsoft Family Safety, and that actually will control the Xbox as well. And then for an Android device, you have something like Google Family Link. Again, these are free, built-in, like parental controls that you can use on these types of devices. For Apple devices, you have Screen Time, and it's part of iOS. And then for like Nintendo Switch, there is Nintendo Parental Controls. It's an app that you download on your phone that you can set parental controls for the Switch, which again will shut off the entire device, not just the internet access, like once it's reached a specific time frame or a specific hour of the day. It'll shut off access to the device, so they can't even use the device itself. PlayStation also has some parental controls. You would download the PlayStation app. So really, any device that has internet access does have built-in parental controls. Almost all of the most popular devices do. So that next layer would be the on-device built-in parental controls that you can set. Now, when we're talking about like phones and tablets and computers, there are also on-device parental controls that you can set from third parties. And so this is going to be something that you've maybe paid a subscription for. But again, it's something that you install on the device itself. So that's part of this on device layer. Because sometimes the built in parental controls don't do everything you want them to do. And so that's when you start relying on some of these third party apps. Now, a lot of people, like, I actually use several different applications on my children's devices, but some of the third party apps might conflict with each other. And let's talk a little bit about where those conflicts happen, and so what you would do to choose, which parental control app that you would want to use. So the Griffin has something called Homebound, right? And Homebound basically forces the phone or tablet back to the protected Griffin network. It's an app that you install. It's part of our premium subscription. So if you want to know more information about the premium subscription, go ahead and check that out in your Griffin app. There's a lot of really great features of the premium subscription. So definitely recommend that. But Homebound is included in that. And so Homebound is an app that you would install on your child's device. And when they are using that device, and they're at school or off of the Griffin Wi-Fi network, because the Griffin will only be able to control the devices that are connected to its Wi-Fi, right? Because otherwise it can't see it, and so it can't control it. But what Homebound does is, no matter where your phone is, so you're at the store or wherever, it basically forces that device to act like it's still on the Griffin network. And the way it does that is through something called a VPN. So a VPN stands for a virtual private network. And what that does, and you may have heard this phrase when talking about privacy, a lot of people will install VPN apps on their own devices just to privatize some of their internet browsing. But in this scenario, it's essentially taking that device and virtually placing it back on the Griffin Wi-Fi network. So like I said, it does this through something called a VPN. Now, VPN is actually what a lot of these third-party parental control apps will use in order to enforce these controls. I am not a super fan of a VPN for third-party parental control apps. In the homebound scenario, it totally makes sense because it's forcing it back to the home network. But in the third-party app scenario, I don't feel like it makes a lot of sense, but that's how a lot of them do it. And so only one VPN can be active at any given time. So if the third party application that you want to use uses a VPN, then it is going to conflict with Homebound if you're trying to use Homebound as well. So some examples of this: the Verizon Smart Family, that uses a VPN. Again, I don't mind it so much. Well, no, I do mind it on Verizon Smart Family because Verizon owns the data network. Like, I don't know why it needs to have a VPN to another network, but that's neither here nor there. But Verizon Smart Family does use a VPN. So you wouldn't be able to use Verizon Smart Family and something like Homebound on the same device because it only can be connected to one. So, a kind of way to understand this is if I'm connected to my Wi Fi, I can't also be connected to somebody else's Wi Fi at the same time. So that's how you need to kind of think of this VPN scenario. And so it can only be connected to one at a time. So Canopy, even Bark has VPNs built into their applications. Now, however, Bark itself, so Bark is a great third party tool. I use this for monitoring content on social media applications and text messages and things like that. So it is a great content monitoring tool, but it does have a VPN because it has some um, controls that you can also set, like where you can um, uh, control how much time your kids have spending on different apps or block different apps. However, and so that's what it uses the VPN for. So I actually don't connect the VPN for Bark, and I just use it for the monitoring because the VPN in Bark is not required for that monitoring portion. So that's something to be aware of with Bark. Now, something like Canopy, it does require the VPN in order to use. Canopy is a really great tool that can help prevent sexting and inappropriate content from being accessed. And it actually uses AI to filter content in real time. Like I said, with the Griffin, with the Wi-Fi, it can only allow or deny access to specific sites. And so if you've got Google Images or something, there can be maybe some inappropriate images that show up. But with Canopy installed, and it's installed on the device itself, it actually filters through those images in real time and those websites in real time for inappropriate content. And so I do actually really like Canopy, but it does also use a VPN. So it would conflict with something like Homebound or Verizon Smart Family because you can only be connected to one VPN at a time. So there's a lot of other third-party apps. Those are my favorites: Bark, Canopy, Verizon Smart Family, or whatever data plan that you're subscribed to, that I would recommend theirs. But again, you can only have one VPN at a time, so you would need to choose which features you want the most. So if you are using something like Canopy and you're using the VPN, well, when that device is on the Griffin network, then you need to make sure that a VPN is allowed for that device because Griffin gives you the ability to shut down access for your children's devices to a VPN, which is a good thing because a VPN, like I said, it's taking the device and putting it on another network. When it's homebound and it's coming back to the protected Griffin network, that's great. But if it's on your protected network and they connect to a VPN, that's another third party VPN, then it's putting them on an unprotected network and bypassing all of the Griffin controls and restrictions. So you generally want to shut down access to a VPN. So, if you're using a third party application that requires a VPN on your Griffin network, then you may want to create another user. So, like, let's say my son, we've got you know, Chad 1, and then we have another user that's Chad 2. And Chad 2 is where his phone is that has that VPN installed and allows a VPN. And then Chad 1 is where all of his other devices that don't have something like that requires a VPN. So the Nintendo or the TV or whatever, or the laptop, so that they can't use a VPN on those devices, but they can use a VPN on the other device. So that's kind of that layer, the on device layer. The next layer would be on network. So you do a lot of the filtering and everything can, excuse me. Um, a lot of the filtering can happen through just the Griffin itself. But if you want an added layer of protection, which I always recommend because more layers, the better. And this is how I consider it. So, say inappropriate content or something you don't want your children to access is a little, this little thing. And I don't want them to get to this. So I put it in a safe and then I lock the safe. And then I put that safe in my car and I lock the car. And then that car is in my garage and I lock the garage. And then, so if I wanted to get access to that, I would have to break into the garage, break into the car, and then break into the safe, and then I can access that device or that content, right? Well, so the more layers or the more locks that you have in place on the way to that content is going to just, deter at every given turn. And then, accidental viewing of it, would be lessened and things like that. But the content is still accessible. It's just really hard to get to, right? So that's what I consider like with these layers of parental controls. Now, on network is another layer, right? So that's going to be like the garage layer. And while Griffin also, filters your content based on what user profile that you've assigned it, then you can add an additional layer of filtering with something like OpenDNS. And OpenDNS is a free platform. You can sign up for a free account at opendns.com. And it's really easy to add that to the Griffin network. You would just go into your settings, your LAN settings, and then set a manual DNS. And when you set the manual DNS, OpenDNS has the same servers. It's just some numbers. It's going to have 4 octets. So you have, like 200.22 dot whatever. And so you would just add those in the Griffin settings, and then you're connected to OpenDNS and you have this additional layer of filtering. So something, if I'm on like an unfiltered profile, but I still want pornography blocked for the whole network, I can block pornography at OpenDNS. And so if anything gets through the Griffin, then like OpenDNS has my back, basically, because no database is going to be perfect. There's still going to be content out there that you can access. So having that extra layer is super important to me. So OpenDNS is completely compatible with Griffin. You just need to set these manual DNS settings in your Griffin app. And so when I want to block something for the entire network, so say a website like Omegle. Omegle is a terrible website. The first time I came across it, it was called Chat Roulette. And this is, way back, 10, 15 years ago. And I'd heard about it. And so I usually try and check these things out. And so I opened it up and like literally it was like what it does is it matches you with a random stranger on video, right? What could go wrong? And so they matched with like some random stranger who like the entire video was just of his like male body parts. And I'm like, and I shut the laptop and okay, I'm never going to that website again. Um, and so that's something like a URL that I would block at OpenDNS because it's going to block it for the entire network. So any gaming systems, any smart devices, it's going to block it for all of those locations because it's blocking it from the entire network. If I want to block something just for my kids' devices or something like that, like let's say the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, do we have to say it like that? If I want to block that for just my children's devices because it's something that I still need to access, I can block that in the Griffin and it'll block it for the specific devices. But if I block it at OpenDNS, it's going to block it for every device on the network. So with Griffin, I can get a little more granular about what websites I want to allow and deny access to. But with OpenDNS, you can block it for the whole thing. There's another company called Clean Browsing. It's similar to OpenDNS. Like I said, OpenDNS is free. Clean Browsing is a paid subscription, but it does have some more features than OpenDNS has. So that might also be something to look into. So those are the basic layers of parental controls. And then my favorite layer is the fifth layer, and that is conversations. So making sure that your kids understand why these protections are put in place, understand what can happen on technology, and not in a frightening way, but letting them know like these are the dangers that are out there. These are the scams that are out there. These are the ways people try and groom you, or ways people try and connect with you, and really having those conversations. And then I would also talk about things that you've discovered. So, you're in your Griffin app and you see that they've been browsing some specific website that doesn't look great to you. You've checked it out. You're like, oh, they shouldn't be on that. Then you go and sit down with them and have a conversation about that particular website. So like say like archive.org. Archive.org is a great site, but it's basically an archive of all of the internet sites in the world. And so there's inappropriate sites on the internet. And so the Griffin might not see that because it's archive.org, but it is going to it's showing you an older version of a site that has inappropriate content. And so you might not know that that is inappropriate. So all you see on the Griffin is archive.org. So you might want to like sit down, hey, what were you looking at archive.org? And, have them show you that. So, and that actually leads me to one of the limitations of the Griffin. Because it is a Wi-Fi device, it's only really going to show you the main URL that your children have been browsing in this browsing history. So it's just going to show archive.org. It's not going to show the full web address. And that's because, that data basically gets sent in an encrypted fashion through the Wi-Fi network. And so the Wi-Fi can't really decode that without some specific things. So something on the device. So if you have, something like Bark installed on the phone, then it can help understand that, or Net Nanny or something like that, that's on the device itself or on the computer, and will help you understand the full URL because it has access. Like the computer itself can see the full URL because it's being accessed that way. But when it travels over the Wi-Fi, it's sent through an encrypted fashion. And so that's why the Griffin can't really see the full URL. And so when you have additional layers, then it can give you a little more insight into what's going on. So, and like I said, this is one of my favorite examples. I got an alert from Bark that my son was looking up inappropriate content. It said it was a sexual content. And I looked at it and it said that he was looking at bouncy balls. are like searching for bouncy balls. And so, I go to him and, we have a good laugh about what was picked up as inappropriate content. But when I do come across something that is actually concerning, having those conversations frequently will make that conversation a whole lot easier to handle because we've already talked about this. We know what we're considering as inappropriate. So there's a lot of kind of groundwork that you need to set through conversations with your family. So making sure they know what parental controls are installed, why they're installed, what they can do, will be a really important step and layer to this whole parental control strategy. So that's all the layers. We've got in app, on device, on network, and then having conversations. So just make sure you've got all of your layers covered. Those are all the locks on the different doors to get to that inappropriate content. And hopefully you can keep your family a little safer. So I don't see any questions that have come through at all. So we will go ahead and leave it there. I will say I've got a special coupon for anybody who is watching this video, and that is 30 Min Tech 15. So this is going to save you 15% on any Griffin device on our store. So go ahead and use that code and hopefully get your family a little more protected from all the stuff. Cover that on Wi-Fi layer with a Griffin device. So that is 30 Min Tech 15, and that will save you 15% on any device on the Griffin store. And that is just at griffinconnect.com. So we will go ahead and end a little early. Like I said, I don't see any questions or chats that have come in. So thank you guys for joining. I do enjoy doing these every month. Again, our next one will be the first Thursday of September, and we will see you guys then.